Ever heard a story from Australia so spine-chilling, maybe? Even the local wildlife gives it a wide berth. Welcome to Forbidden Unveiled. I'm your host, John Doe.
And I'm Jane Doe, ready to explore the shadows with you.
Today we're plunging into, well, the eerie enigma that is the Monte Cristo Homestead in June, New South Wales. Now, when you first glimpse this grand old house, it sort of whispers tales of Aussie success, a family who carved out a fortune from the land.
That's right. Picture a striking two-story Victorian mansion, proudly perched on a hill, looking out over the town. It really screams prosperity and a life well lived.
But hold on to your hats, folks, because beneath that veneer of success lurks a history just brimming with tragedy, isolation, and honestly more ghostly tales than you can shake a spectral stick at. It's earned the title, quite possibly, of Australia's most haunted house.
And for good reason. This isn't just a few creaky floorboards. We're talking about a place where misfortune seems, well, it seems woven into the very fabric of the building, creating an atmosphere thick with, well, let's just say things that go bump in the night.
So buckle up as we peel back the layers of history and the spooky stories that cling to the Monte Cristo homestead. If you're enjoying our dives into the unexplained, definitely hit that follow or subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so June wasn't always the bustling hub it is today, was it? Take us back to the beginning.
No, not really. In the mid-19th century, June was still finding its feet. But in 1845, a significant pastoral run was established, and slowly, a community began to take shape. Then along came Christopher William Crawley, who really is the central figure in our story. He bought land in June, but those early years were a real slog. He and his family were living in a basic slab hut, and making ends meet was a constant battle.
The quintessential Aussie battler, then.
Yeah.
Facing down hardship with some true grit.
Exactly. But here's a real turning point. In 1878, the Great Southern Railway line steamed into June. Crawley, with a stroke of genius, managed to scrape together enough to build the railway hotel smack bang opposite the new station.
Talk about a smart move. Suddenly, June's on a map, and Crawley's right there in the thick of it.
Precisely. The railway brought travelers, trade, and a real boom to June. Crawley's hotel and the adjacent railway store became the beating heart of this growing village. He amassed considerable wealth and became a pillar of the community, known for his generosity and his commitment to the town.
So we've got this great Australian success story brewing. When does the sunny optimism start to take a turn towards the spooky?
Well, even during this period of growing prosperity, the family had moved into a small brick cottage, a step up from the slab hut, but Crawley had bigger plans. In 1885, his vision was realized with the completion of the Monte Cristo Homestead, a magnificent two-story late Victorian house that dominated the landscape, sitting proudly on a hill overlooking all of June.
Right.
The old brick cottage then became the servants' quarters. This new home was the ultimate symbol of his hard-won success and, social standing.
A real showpiece. You can just picture the pride he must have felt. But this success story, sadly, wasn't destined for a peaceful ending, was it?
Tragically not. Christopher Crawley passed away in 1910. The cause was a particularly nasty combination of heart failure and blood poisoning. It stemmed from an infected carbuncle on his neck, something apparently made worse by his really rigidly starched collars.
Ugh. It sounds like a truly unpleasant way to go. And this had a devastating impact on his wife, Elizabeth.
It utterly shattered her world. Elizabeth Crawley became a complete recluse for the remaining 23 years of her life. She withdrew entirely into the attic, had a small chapel built up there, and famously only left the house twice before her own death in 1933. She was 92 then, died from a ruptured appendix.
23 years of self-imposed isolation.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly long time to be cloistered away. You can only imagine the atmosphere that must have permeated that house during those years, just a thick blanket of grief and solitude.
It certainly paints a powerful picture of profound loss and withdrawal, and it's this intense emotional residue, this prolonged period of such strong feelings confined within those walls that many believe contributes to the homestead's later reputation for being haunted.
Makes sense. So after Elizabeth passed, what became of the Grand Monte Cristo? Did the family keep living there, filling its rooms with life?
Well, the last of the Crawley family moved out in 1948, and then the homestead stood empty for over a decade. Despite a few caretakers trying to keep things in order, it sadly fell into disrepair and became a target for vandalism. The once grand interiors were stripped bare as all the original furnishings were sold off.
A real shame to see such a significant place fall into decline like that. Must have been quite a sight when the next owners finally came along, ready to breathe life back into it.
It was in a sorry state, apparently. But in 1963, Reginald and Olive Ryan bought the Monte Cristo homestead with a real passion for restoration. They poured tremendous effort into bringing it back to its former glory, eventually opening it as a museum, complete with a rather intriguing doll museum and an antique store.
A new chapter then, hopefully with a bit more light and a lot less, well, carbuncles. But I've got a sneaking suspicion this isn't where the peaceful restoration story ends.
You'd be right on the money there. Almost immediately after moving in, the Ryans started experiencing some decidedly odd occurrences. Their usually well-behaved cat and dog point-blank refused to set paw inside the house, which, let's be honest, is always a bit of a paranormal red flag, isn't it?
Totally. Animals know.
And on one occasion, they returned home to find every single light blazing, only for them all to switch off the moment they opened the front door.
Oh, wow. Classic Spooky House 101.
Yeah.
It's like the house itself was giving them a polite but firm
Sure.
welcome, but maybe you should reconsider.
Exactly. And those initial unsettling moments were just the tip of the spectral iceberg. The Ryans and countless visitors since have reported a whole host of paranormal phenomena, leading to the widespread belief that the homestead is haunted by not just one or two, but at least 10 distinct ghosts.
10. Wow, that's practically a spectral convention going on there. Let's delve into some of these ghostly residents, shall we? You mentioned something earlier about the past inhabitants maybe not being the biggest fans of furry friends, even in the afterlife.
Yes, this is a particularly disturbing aspect of the Monte Cristo story. The Ryans themselves experienced a chilling negativity directed towards their animals. They tragically found all their chickens strangled, their pet parrot choked within its cage, and most horrifyingly, a litter of kittens brutally killed in their breakfast room.
Oh, that's awful.
It really suggests a very malevolent and unsettling energy lingering within the property, specifically targeting the innocent.
That's genuinely creepy. It speaks to a really dark undercurrent in the history of the place. What about the Crawley family themselves? Are they still making their presence known?
By all accounts, yes. Christopher Crawley is said to haunt the very room where he drew his last breath, but his spirit is generally considered to be relatively benign, perhaps even a little sad.
Okay.
His wife, Elizabeth, however, well, she's a different kettle of spectral fish. She's said to still rule the roost with a rather imperious, ghostly presence. Visitors claim she actively judges them, and if she finds you wanting, she might just manifest as sudden, bone-chilling blasts of ice-cold air.
So even in the afterlife, it sounds like you'd better mind your manners at Monte Cristo. What about the other reported ghosts? There are some truly tragic tales of former maids, aren't there?
Indeed. Local legend whispers that Christopher Crawley had affairs with two of the housemaids, both of whom became pregnant. One of these poor women tragically took her own life, jumping from the balcony while carrying his child. She landed on the stairs and died instantly.
Oh my God.
And her tormented spirit is said to haunt the veranda, with a ghostly bloodstain reportedly still visible on the very spot where she fell.
That's just heartbreaking. A real stain on the seemingly successful facade of the Crawley family. And what about the second maid?
The second maid gave birth to a son named Harold. Now, when Harold was a young boy, a terrible accident occurred on the property. He was struck by a coach, suffering a severe head injury. The resulting brain trauma left him significantly disabled, and the sad and rather grim tale is that he was reportedly kept chained in the coach room for over 30 years.
Chained for over 30 years. That's just an unimaginable level of cruelty and confinement.
It is a truly horrific aspect of the story. Apparently, local children would cruelly taunt him, calling him a monster because he would sometimes scream out. Eventually, the authorities discovered him chained to his deceased mother's bed and moved him to an asylum, where he later died. But his tormented spirit is said to remain trapped within the homestead. Visitors frequently report the chilling sound of rattling chains and even his anguished screams echoing through the property.
This is just layer upon layer of tragedy and suffering, and it doesn't end there, does it? There's a particularly grim story associated with the coach house itself.
Yes. The coach house is said to be haunted by the ghost of a young stable boy named Morris. One day, he wasn't feeling well and stayed in bed in the coach house. His master, angered that he wasn't working, decided to teach him a brutal lesson. He set Morris's straw mattress on fire, intending to scare him into getting up.
No.
Tragically, Morris was too ill to move and was burned alive. People still claim to hear his terrifying screams.
Good heavens. The sheer cruelty in some of these accounts is just staggering. It really paints a picture of a harsh and unforgiving time. And then there's the heartbreaking tale of young Ethel Crawley.
Another devastating incident. In 1917, Christopher and Elizabeth's infant granddaughter, Ethel, tragically died after being dropped on the stairs by a nursemaid. The nursemaid, in a moment of terror, claimed she was pushed by an unseen force.
Push.
That's what she claimed. And to this day, visitors report that young children often become inexplicably distressed while on the stairs, and some adults have even felt a distinct push or the sensation of a cold, tiny hand slipping into theirs.
It's like the echoes of these past traumas are somehow imprinted onto the very structure of the building, these residual energies manifesting in unsettling ways. And there's even a more recent ghostly addition to the homestead, isn't there? Something a bit more modern.
That's right. In 1960, a caretaker named Jack Simpson met a violent end on the front porch. He was shot and killed by a young man who had become deeply disturbed after watching the movie Psycho.
Seriously. Psycho.
Yeah. And the chillingly casual and cool words, "Die, Jack," haha, were even carved into the shed door and are incredibly, reportedly still visible today.
So it's not just the historical tragedies from the Crawley era contributing to the haunted reputation.
Yeah.
It seems like the property has, unfortunately, just attracted darkness over the years.
It certainly appears that way. Beyond these specific ghostly figures and their tragic stories, there are numerous other reported paranormal phenomena. Lights inexplicably turning on and off, sudden waves of nausea and overwhelming sadness washing over visitors. Some people even faint during tours.
Wow.
Then you have the classic disembodied whispers, unexplained mists swirling within rooms, strange orbs captured in photographs, and even reports of poltergeist activity, objects moving on their own.
It sounds like a veritable paranormal smorgasbord. It's no wonder the Monte Cristo Homestead has captured the attention of so many paranormal investigation teams and been featured on numerous television shows dedicated to the spooky side of life.
Absolutely. Programs like Scream Test, Ghost Hunters International, and My Ghost Story are just a few that have sent teams to investigate the persistent claims of paranormal activity at the homestead.
Which brings us to personal experiences. We stumbled across a really fascinating account from a Reddit user who actually braved an overnight stay at Monte Cristo. That must have been, well, let's just say not your average Airbnb experience.
You can say that again. Get this user, who initially described themselves as quite skeptical, booked an overnight stay as a bit of a birthday adventure, maybe seeking a bit of an adrenaline rush. They arrived in the afternoon, and while taking some photographs of the gift shop window, they captured an image that appeared to show the distinct head of a young girl.
No way.
In the photo.
Yeah. Later, tour guides identified this figure as possibly being Molly, a former maid who tragically died at the homestead around a century ago. The user even shared these photos online, and they are pretty compelling, to say the least.
Wow. Talk about a potential instant conversion from a skeptic to believer. And that wasn't the end of their spooky encounters, was it? Not by a long shot. Later, during a daytime tour, they reported feeling sudden and intense cold spots in specific rooms where deaths had occurred. Most strikingly, while standing completely still in one of the more notoriously haunted areas, they felt the chain of their cross, the one they were wearing around their neck, inexplicably slide across the back of their neck, like in a really unnatural and deliberate way.
Whoa. Chilling. It's often those subtle personal experiences that carry the most weight, that feel undeniably real to the person experiencing them. What else did this brave Redditor encounter during their time at Monte Cristo?
They also recounted witnessing an elderly woman in their tour group being physically pushed by something unseen in one of the girls' rooms. Apparently, playful, if somewhat forceful activity is not uncommon in that particular space. Their tour guide even got so unnerved by some of the resident spirits that he had to hand over the rest of the tour to his wife.
The guy got spooked. Okay, that says something.
Right. But the overnight stay itself was the most intense part. They and their companions clearly heard the distinct sounds of heavy footsteps walking around upstairs for hours throughout the night.
Uh-oh.
Despite the fact that the only other occupants on that floor, an elderly couple, claimed they hadn't moved from their beds or heard a single thing all night.
The classic phantom footsteps when no one's there phenomenon always sends a shiver down the spine. And did the user themselves experience anything else in their private room during the night? Any bumps in the night?
They did. Their room had an old wooden step in the entrance that was quite creaky. This step creaked audibly a couple of times during the night, which understandably sent their already heightened nerves into overdrive. But maybe the most poignant and unsettling experience of the entire stay was what their father reported.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
He claimed that a while after one of the door creaks, he felt a distinct, cold, sad hug from someone smaller. It only lasted for a few seconds, but it deeply affected him, leaving a lasting impression of sorrow and unease.
A cold, sad hug.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredibly evocative and genuinely chilling. It really makes you wonder about the lingering emotional energy trapped within those walls, the unseen presences reaching out in their own way.
It truly does, and it highlights the diverse range of experiences people report at Monte Cristo, from visual apparitions and tangible physical sensations to these really profound emotional encounters. It's quite the catalog of claimed paranormal activity.
It certainly is, and I think it's important to acknowledge, with any claims of this nature, a degree of healthy skepticism is natural. How much of what's reported at Monte Cristo could be attributed to suggestion, the power of belief, or even just misinterpretation of natural stuff?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Without concrete scientific evidence, it's impossible to say definitively what is genuinely paranormal and what might have other explanations. However, regardless of where you stand on the belief spectrum, the history of the Monte Cristo homestead is undeniably rich and filled with genuinely tragic events. It's a place where you can certainly feel the weight of the past, even if you don't personally encounter anything overtly supernatural.
Absolutely. It's a location steeped in history, both the light and the dark aspects of it. So, for any of our listeners who might be feeling particularly brave or maybe foolish, is the Monte Cristo homestead open to the public? Can people go experience it for themselves?
It is indeed. It operates as a museum, offering fascinating daytime tours that delve into its history. And for the truly adventurous among you, they also conduct ghost tours on Saturday evenings and even offer overnight stays for those who dare to spend a night within its haunted walls.
Overnight stays. Yeah, after hearing all these tales, that's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Hmm.
So that brings us to our central question for you, our listeners. After hearing all these chilling accounts, would you be brave enough, or perhaps just curious enough, to spend a night at the Monte Cristo homestead?
It's a question that really taps into our fundamental fascination with the unknown, doesn't it? That primal curiosity about what might lie beyond our everyday experience. And maybe, just maybe, the intense paranormal activity reported at Monte Cristo isn't just about individual spirits trapped in time, but a deeper resonance with the land itself. A manifestation of the echoes of all the intense emotions, both joy and immense suffering, that have permeated that place over the generations. It makes you wonder about the unseen stories held within the ground itself, you know?
That's a really thought-provoking point. A chilling reminder that places can hold on to the imprints of the past in ways we're only beginning to understand. We'd love to hear your thoughts, listeners. Have you ever visited a location with a strong sense of history, or perhaps even a haunted one? Do you have your own experiences with the unexplained? Share your stories with us. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to Forbidden Unveiled for more deep dives into the mysteries that lie just beyond our everyday perception.
Thanks so much for joining us for this exploration into the spectral history of the Monte Cristo homestead. Until our next deep dive, keep your minds open and maybe sleep with the lights on tonight.